The US presidential elections are still more than a month away, but polling has already begun in 7 states in the form of mail-in ballots or absentee voting. Missouri is now the 7th US state to begin early voting across several counties. And other 6 states include Minnesota, New Jersey, South Dakota, Vermont, Virginia and Wyoming. Our next report gets you more on the advanced polling process in the US and the controversy surrounding them.
Early voting, also called advanced polling or pre-poll voting, is a convenient voting process which allows people to cast their vote prior to the scheduled election day. For the United States, early voting is similar to no-excuse absentee voting. The pre-polling period varies for different states. The process of early voting was introduced for Americans living outside of the United States and the members of the military and merchant marine and their families. The American citizens have the options to vote by ballot, mail, fax, email, and even on web portals. But almost since the beginning of the 2020 elections and the arrival of pandemic, mail-in voting has suddenly become a controversial issue. People have been voting by mail in the US for close to 100 years, but it has never been as big an issue as it is in the 2020 election. And there are 2 reasons for that. The number of voters who vote early has increased in recent years, and with the pandemic casting a shadow over the presidential polls, the Democrats have pushed for citizens to vote by mail. In the 2016 presidential election, approximately 33 million votes were cast via mailed-out ballots, which makes for about a quarter of all ballots cast across the country. And this year, there has been a 10-fold increase in the request for mail ballots, even in states that don't usually use mail-in voting. The second reason for the ballot voting becoming an issue is President Donald Trump. Trump has repeatedly been claiming that the widespread mail-in voting will inevitably lead to fraud.
They're sending out tens of millions of ballots to everybody, people that didn't expect them. People are getting inundated with ballots. They'll be showered with ballots. Everybody in this room knows it's a scam. Okay? Everybody in this room, even John. Don't say it, John, because it's a scam. Sending ballots at a level they are never going to be able to count them.
There is again very little evidence for that, and despite Trump's unsubstantiated claims, the number of states pushing for mail-in voting is only rising. Even battleground state of Nevada, a federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit brought by the Trump campaign over the state's new mail-in voting law. The president's team has 30 days to appeal the verdict, but a change in result looks unlikely. US Election Desk, WION World is One.
Now, early voting has begun in some key states in the US, and for more insights, we are now being joined by Jagriti Dave live from Washington, D.C. A very warm welcome to you, Jagriti. Now, early voting has begun in these key states in the US in the form of mail-in ballots, of course. Now, with more than a month to go before the elections, tell us about some of the trends that we're witnessing in the run-up, and how smooth is the mail-in voting process really, because it sparked quite a lot of controversy of late.
Yes, mail-in voting has ended up being quite a political issue because notably President Donald Trump has criticised it, saying at many rallies and speeches that it could be subject to fraud, even though independent studies show that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. And so when it comes to early voting, you have lots of people right now, because of the coronavirus pandemic, many states are expecting there to be a surge in mail-in ballots, whether that is through early voting or just people not wanting to line up on election day on November the 3rd and wanting to vote by mail for safety reasons. So many states are expecting a surge in mailing vote, and as you say in your report, early voting has started, and in lots of these states early voting can take in the place of in-person early voting, but also in other forms such as mail-in voting. And so in many of these battleground states where the races are so tight, it'll be interesting to see exactly how many people will vote early, how many people will vote by mail. It's expected, according to analysts, that many Americans will already have voted, cast their ballots before Election Day.
Right, absolutely. Now, Trump's recent remarks on the coronavirus-related deaths in the US have sparked quite a lot of critique. Will this affect the polling trends as early voting begins?
Well, national polls show Joe Biden in the lead, but in some key battleground states, that lead has narrowed, and in many states they are neck and neck. In a recent poll in the state of Georgia, for example, shows a tie between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So it's really difficult to tell. This isn't a new comment that President Trump has made. He has, repeatedly said that the death toll would have been higher. 2.5 million is the number he's quoted, if he hadn't engaged in the nationwide shutdowns. And so he often pivots when he is asked about the death toll. He's asked about criticisms levied against his administration. He often pivots, points to a potentially higher death toll were the shutdown not to have happened. So this isn't necessarily anything new that he's saying, but it really depends on how people view the president's performance and his administration's performance in handling the coronavirus pandemic. It is likely to be a central issue on people's minds as they vote. But as polling is showing at the moment, in many battleground areas, they are very tied together, Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They're very close. In other places, Joe Biden does have a lead of some kind. In some polls show it's a significant lead. So it really depends on how important this pandemic is in people's minds as they're voting.
Right. Now, just shifting focus to another topic which is pegged to have a huge impact on polling. Judge Amy Coney Barrett has emerged as Trump's overwhelming favorite to replace the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, and according to several people familiar with deliberations. So how is this nomination being perceived in the run-up to the elections?
So many Democrats are critical of the president's decision to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg so soon. So they say that her last wishes, as translated by her granddaughter, were that she she wanted there to be a delay before she was replaced. She wanted to wait until after the election. But many Republicans, including a critic of the president, Mitt Romney, has said that he will vote for a nominee if it's put to the Senate floor. He thinks that it is within the Constitution to do so. And so this is important, that Donald Trump essentially has the numbers to get a nomination through. And he said that he will be announcing that nomination on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Right. All right, Jagriti, thank you so much for all your inputs, and thank you for joining us.